My guest today is Sudeep Goswami. Sudeep, how are you, sir?
I'm great, David. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day here in Chicago. I can't wait to get outside. Tell me, what do you do for a living?
I am the CEO of Traefik Labs, and I am working in the AI and the API infrastructure space, helping clients make sure that they're able to deploy their API securely, safely, and in any environment that they have.
Tell me a little about Traffic Labs.
Yeah, so Traefik Labs was born as a open source uh, project back in 2016, and the premise there was really to take microservices. At the time, Docker Swarm was the thing to do. And the primitive there was to ensure that all of your containers and everything running in Docker can be exposed as services to the outside world in a secure, safe manner. That's what started Traefik as an open source.
Okay. And you're still
And
maintaining this open source project.
and that is still being maintained. We have over 3.3 billion downloads to date. It's one of the
Wow.
most vibrant open source projects in this space. We have hundreds and thousands of nodes in production. We have over 800 contributors to the project, and it continues to grow.
That sounds like a success story. Tell me a little about the technology involved in this project.
Yeah, so it's written in Go. That was the open source project, natively written in Go. So before that, there were many other implementations. And what the founder and the CTO, Emil, did was he kind of looked at the landscape and says, I think none of the existing solutions and approaches work. So let's rewrite this from scratch. Let's make it cloud native. Let's make it very lightweight. And let's not be encumbered by any of the other approaches out there. So therefore, the approach of writing natively in Go started, and actually it's worked out very well because it's truly stayed. Like we're looking now, what almost 10 years since it was started, and even by today's standards, like writing it in Go was the best decision that was made, and it's stood the test of time. It's lightweight. It's used in edge environments, is used in big data center, small data center, you name it, like from small to large deployments. This has really worked out well.
Why was Go the right decision?
Without going into all the technicalities of it, which I'm sure my founder and CTO would be able to explain, I think one of the things was the way Go is designed to be very lightweight,
I see.
to be very container friendly, to be very modular and scalable in nature. Those were some of the key decisions that went in.
Got it. Now, my understanding is this tool can be deployed in your own environment or into some managed cloud environments as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a Kubernetes native container image, so to speak, or solution, so to speak. So you can deploy it. We have customers deploying it at home labs in multiple different ways. So you can deploy it in Docker. You can deploy it in a Kubernetes, so in K3s and K3D, Minikube. You can even deploy this in Canonical's kind of micro K8s. And then to the large environments, so any kind of upstream, mainstream Kubernetes deployment, so AKS, EKS, GKE, OKE, LKE, you name it,
That's an
it
alphabet
works
soup right there.
natively across all of those Kubernetes environments.
Yeah, basically the Kubernetes platform supported by the various cloud providers.
Correct.
Uh,
And one more thing on that, like we didn't start with Kubernetes. The company started when Kubernetes was not even around. So it started in the Docker Swarm
okay,
era, so circa 2016, 2017. So we were very native, cloud native back in the days. And
I see.
then as Kubernetes kind of came to the scene, we quickly adopted and ensured that just like we were cloud native in the Docker era, we remain kube native. And so therefore, kind of we have gone through, and if you look back now, we have support in many different environments. We're natively supported in Docker with Docker Swarm. We're natively supported in HashiCorp with Nomad. We're natively supported in even kind of like the older legacy environments, like call it VM, and obviously with the latest and greatest in all Cube installations and Cube environments.
Yeah, we were talking offline about some of the other tools, some of the other technologies that are involved in this, like API Gateway, for example. Can you talk a little about how your tool is using that?
Yeah, so the open source project started as what's called an application proxy use case, which is essentially a reverse proxy, a load balancer, L4 through 7 routing, and it's used typically in an ingress controller mode in the Kubernetes world. So this is the open source version. The question you're asking is about the API gateway, which is the paid offering, which is the next level up in the journey of a user going from an ingress controller to an API gateway. And what API gateway really brings, so everything I just talked about in the open source, plus additional capabilities.
Okay.
One of the most key one that customers use is centralizing their authentication and authorization. So this is using an OIDC compliant kind of protocols or workflows with OAuth in there. So you're connecting to a third party identity provider, being able to leverage all of the identity claims and scopes from there to construct your security policies. This is the central role of an API gateway. And it brings additional things like distributor certificate management, distributor rate limiting. It also has other features like we have an AI gateway, which is part of an API gateway and makes it much more enterprise ready with third party integrations like integration with a Key Vault. So we have integration with Azure Key Vault, we have integration with HashiCorp Vault. All of these things encompass that API gateway kind of package and tier that we offer in addition to the open source.
Got it. So it sounds like you're separating this, I'll call that the plumbing, the things like the security and the authentication, the authorization, the getting the keys, separating that from the code, the functionality of it. That's the value that you get from this.
Yeah, we wanted it to be a very progressive and modular journey. So not everybody needs those day one.
Mhm.
People want to be able to quickly integrate their microservices, their applications, and be able to expose them to securely. So the open source is a great way to get started with that. And then when you start to scale this in a production environment, that's when you're going to need those additional capabilities. So we wanted to make this a progressive, a seamless, and a modular journey. And the best part about this is to go from the open source to the API gateway. It's one Helm chart command, takes about a
Wow.
minute or less to execute. And all you need is a license key.
Mm.
And then it does an in-place upgrade, preserves all your existing configurations, and gives you more capabilities.
Awesome. I like those little barriers to entries for software. Where does API management fit into all this? I know that's a part of what you're doing.
Yeah, so that would be the next tier above the API gateway. So
Okay.
the API gateway, the central component of that is centralizing the authentication authorization. So it's a very security focused use case, which is where you need the API gateway. And then what API management does, it builds on top of that. And this is where enterprises who are really driving or APIs are really driving their business, and API has become kind of like the main unit of commodity or monetization for them. They have internal customers of APIs, they have external customers of APIs, they might have external partners. So APIs really are the lifeblood of their business. This is where they need what's called API lifecycle management. So all of those applications and services that you create, you're exposing them as APIs to the outside world, but then your day two operations kick in. How do you version those APIs? How do you rate limit them? How do you provide the right level of granularity? So if an API is only supposed to be read only versus read write, how do you enforce those types of policies? How do you expose those APIs through a developer portal to your community? That community could be internal users, external users, there's a whole host of what we call API governance requirements that come in, along with API observability. Your business users want to know how these APIs are being used, who's using them, how much is it being used, because it's really driving the monetization and the business forward. So you have both business users caring about the behavior of the APIs, any of the technical users caring about the implementation and the day two operations of those APIs.
Okay. So it sounds like there's three tiers to this. There's the free tier that anybody can use, and then there's the one with one step above that with API Gateway, which adds more features, and then API Management, which adds still more features. Is that a correct summary of your model?
You got it. Exactly.
Okay,
Three tiers, starting with open source, and then tier one, and then tier two.
got it. And this has been around for 10 years, but this is still an active project. You're adding new things. What's going on right now? What's exciting on the roadmap?
Yeah, it's exciting because the world doesn't stay fixed. There's always new things coming up. I mean, of late, as we all know, over the last few years, we've been witnessing AI becoming the new workload
I've heard something about that.
that's permeating everywhere, and that has direct implication into what we do because
Yeah.
essentially what AI workloads are being represented are their microservices. More and more AI workloads are being deployed inside Kubernetes environments. So the same principles apply on how you would take these AI workloads and expose them and make them consumable. And the deployment pattern that has emerged now is exposing and consuming these AI workloads as APIs.
Hmm.
So it directly maps into everything else that we are doing and the infrastructure that we already have. And particularly for Traefik Labs, the three-tier structure that we have, going from open source to an API gateway to an API management, uh, maps very well to the AI as well. So that's why the first thing that we did was within the API gateway tier, we released an AI gateway functionality. And the reason for that is AI Gateway is not a separate product. It's really the way we think of this is it's a manifestation of an API gateway. So you need a lot of the API gateway functionality, and you need a little bit more that are AI specific. So it's an extension of an API gateway rather than a completely new product. So we did that. And then when you come to the API management tier, all of the same principles and the functionality that we have apply. Because those AI workloads are being expressed as APIs, the API governance, the API observability, the developer portal, all those capabilities come to bear.
Tell me a little bit about the open source aspect of this. Are people outside of Traffic contributing to this project?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we have almost over the number, I think, has gone to over 800 now contributors. And it's a pretty vibrant community. We have, I would say, quarterly release cycles of the open source project.
Mm.
And within every cycle, we are getting contributions from the community. I would say one very notable feature that got contributed from the community is the web application firewall.
Mm.
And this is the one where the community submitted a PR, and this was using the OWASP project called Coraza WAF. The community submitted that PR using the WASM interface into our open source. We got it approved, we got it released, and so that is now part of, and all of that I would say took probably a matter of 4 months for a big feature like that to be contributed to us and from the community and actually released as part of an official release cycle. And what we then did was we took that open source and we made it more high performant. And there is a high performance version of that WAF feature, which is part of our API gateway.
Ah,
So
very,
we try to take, things and bring them full and add more value as they need. Not everything goes through that cycle, but this was a great example of
yeah,
coming from a community and then having the community version plus having a more high performant version.
I love it. That's a great example of collaboration between your company and the community, the tech community at large. Is there anything we haven't talked about you feel people really should know about this project?
I think there's still a lot of, because of how the project started was as an open source, I would say there's still a lot of awareness gap that exists. When people think of Traefik Labs, they still think of Traefik Labs just as an open source project. And given the traction of open source, I can see where that comes from.
Mm.
With 3.3 billion downloads It's the most downloaded project. So people use it in home lab and in corporations. So I would say that's one thing we're doing our part to change this as well, is to educate people and bring the awareness of these additional capabilities that we offer. I mean, our open sources, as our users say, it's so good that people don't even think about the other tiers.
Yeah.
So that question doesn't come up. But I think the more of that we can do, and people will see that yes, it doesn't just stop at the open source. You have the API gateway layer, which brings security. You have the API management layer, which brings governance. So I think the security and the governance are the two big things that I would probably want to leave your audience with. Is if they care about those additional capabilities, they
Where can
should
people learn
consider
more?
looking at the
Where is the
additional
project
tiers.
located, and is there good documentation there?
Yeah, we have an extensive documentation page, so you can always go to GitHub. You can go to github.com/Traefik.
Okay.
That would be the way to kind of interact with the community, to contribute if you want to. And if you want to learn more, like from a documentation perspective, you go to doc.traefik.io and you will see an extensive documentation of all the capabilities that we offer on the open source as well as on the paid products. And lastly, you can always go to our webpage, traefik.io, and it will give you links to many more uh, useful information.
I just navigated to all those pages, and I will put those links in the show notes for our viewers. Sudeep, this has been really educational for me. I appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, David. And you're watching Technology and Friends with David Giard.